So this is my very, very sad little Father Christmas, which is on one of these little pulley jingle bell tunes. I'm first going to be painting it all and removing all the little rusted pieces, like these little rusted pipe cleaners, and I'm going to fix it all up. So I'm going to be painting the boots black and the whole body in red, and all the places where it was white I'm going to paint those white, and then I'll be putting the fluffy stuff on once it's all dry. I've taken all the rusted pipe cleaners off, and now I'm just painting it. I'm just mixing Scarlet Lake and crimson together to give me this really nice red. And I'm just going to paint the whole thing. I've painted it all red and it's starting to look a lot better than it was, and now I'm just going to wait for that to dry. The red is all dry, and now I've just painted the little boots black. On all the places that I painted white, I'm taking this white knitting thread and I'm just going to be placing it around and gluing it like that. So we got one going there and one around the top of the head, the arms and the stomach. I'm just going to use some T8000 to glue all of these little pieces on. I've got all my wool glued on, and now I'm taking one of these small little pom-poms and I'm just sticking it onto the end of his hat. And now I'll work on his beard. I've got a tiny piece of wadding which I'm going to be using. I'm just going to place it and then glue that on. I'm just using the T8000 glue to glue his beard on. And then I'll just trim the excess off. To make the skis for my Father Christmas, I've got this old an ice tray, and all I'm doing is I'm cutting 1 centimetre, and I'm just cutting the whole strip off, and then I'm going to be dividing it in half. So I'm going to be using the box cutter to just cut that. I've got my skis cut out, and now I'm shaping them so that they're a little bit rounded at the one end. So I've done one of them, and now I'm just going to do the other one. And as I said, I'm just using the box cutter to just shave them. So I've got my skis shaped and cut to the size that I want, and now I'm just be taking my heat gun and heating just the tip of it so I can get these ones to turn up just a little bit. So it's just a little bit like that. I've marked the skis where I want to glue the feet of the Santa to, so I'm just going to be using some hot glue to do that. I'm putting quite a bit of hot glue on there because the feet are not very, very straight, as you can see. So hopefully we'll get them lying flat. We've got one on, and now I'll do the other one. To make the house, I'm going with measurements of from the tip of the apex to the bottom is 23.5 centimeters, and then going up by 14.5 centimeters to the roof, and the rest is 9 centimeters. And I've gone up by 7 centimeters so that I can make this particular part stronger, so that I can add my mechanism to there, and then I'll trim the pieces off on the sides. And the depth of the house is the height of the walls, which is 14.5 centimeters, and the depth is 12 centimeters. And to make the casing for my little piece, I've just got some pieces of cardboard which I'm folding over. These ones are 2 centimeters wide. I'm folding over like that, so I've got one piece going across, and 2 pieces that'll be going over, so that I can glue it to that piece to hold it all in place. And I'm going to use hot glue to glue it all together. I've glued my mechanism all in place, so I've glued it all along the pieces that are sticking out, so that when we pull this, it's not going to pull out of the little house. And now we can glue all the side pieces on. I'm using some thin cardboard which comes off a chocolate wrapper, and all I'm doing is taking my pair of scissors which has got a bit of a pattern like that on them, and I'm cutting strips that are 2 centimeters wide, and I'm cutting one that is the pattern, and I'm leaving the other side straight, and I'm just cutting a few strips like that so I can use them. And then I've got 2 strips that I'm cutting that are just 1 centimeter wide. I've just drawn a little window onto the thin piece of cardboard, and I'm just going to be painting that all grey and then cutting these small sections out. So I'm keeping the window all in one piece. I've painted a piece of cardboard grey, and now I'm going to be cutting strips at 1/2 centimetre each, and I'm cutting quite a few so I can make the doors and windows out of them. I'm using masking tape to secure the box on the corners, and then just fold it back and do all the sides like that. I'm using some toilet paper, and I've got 3-ply toilet paper, so I'm just going to be separating it so that it's not too thick. And then I'm taking that piece and crunching it up like that so that it looks a little bit untidy, and then just gather it a little bit to make like a fan, and then squash it down so that you can get ridges, so when you open it out it looks a bit like a curtain. And now I'm taking some of this large packing tape and just placing it down, and then taking my piece of toilet paper all crunched up like that, and then I'm putting it onto the packing tape so that when you look at it you've got your curtains for your windows. I've got this small little mold which I'm using some air dried clay, which is a homemade air dried clay, and I've made some of the onlays like this, and I'm going to be painting them grey. I've got this particular paint which is called Snow White, which is what I'm using, and I'm taking a tiny bit of black because I don't want it to be snow white, and then I'm mixing to give me a really light colour grey. So it's very close to white, but it's more on the white side than on the grey side, that I just don't want it to be snow white, because when I put the snow on I want the snow to be whiter than the paint. I've glued all my window frames onto the sellotape that has got the toilet paper behind them, and now I'm going to be cutting them out and gluing them onto my little house. I've put all my onlays and windows in the places where I want them to be, and now I'm gluing those all down with hot glue. I've glued all my windows and door in place, and now I'm going to be taking some of this gold paint and I'm rubbing it over my onlays. I've just got a little bit of gold paint on my finger, and all I'm doing is just rubbing it over the top of it so that it only catches the raised sections. To make the roof, I've taken another piece of cardboard and I've measured it that each side has got a 2 centimeter, and then I've scored along that line, and then in between there I've got 12 centimeters and then another 2. So in total I've got 16 centimeters that I'm working with. So I've scored both sides of the line. Now to get the 45-degree angle in the middle that I want to cut on, because I've got 2 centimeters here, I've measured 2 centimeters inward, and then I've just taken a pencil and drawn directly across from point to point, and now I'm going to be cutting that small piece off so that I'm left with a piece that looks like that. When I bend my roof over, it'll close like that. To make my chimney, I'm just using a toilet roll and then squashing it down and then tipping it over and squashing it again so that I can get a little square. And then I'm taking a pencil and just doing, so measuring from that section, which is 2.5 centimeters, I'm going up 2.5 centimeters, marking it there, and then joining that point to there, and then I'm going to cut that out. On this one, you're going to be cutting this piece straight, like that, and then you're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So your piece will look like that. So we've got the straight in the front, that section's cut out, so when you put it, the chimney will stand straight up like that on the roof. And to cap it, I'm taking a piece of cardboard, marking in by 1 centimeter and going down by 2 centimeters, scoring along that line and then cutting that one. So I'm left with a small piece like that, and then measuring the width of the toilet roll, you're going to fold it to make a square. And because we've got pieces that are going over the top, we need to cut at the 45-degree angle as well, so that they'll go around. So to do that, in measuring 1 centimeter, going out, and then just cutting that small piece off like that, so that these ones will make a square. And then just do the 4 sides like that, so that we get it going around in a square. I've got all my roof pieces cut out, so we've got the chimney and the capping and the side pieces that are going to go on, and the whole roof. And now I'm just going to paint them all with titanium white. The size of the toilet roll works out to 3.5 centimeters wide on each side, cutting a hole out 3.5 by 3.5 all the way around from the roof. I'm extending the length of the roof, so all I've done is I've attached a small piece of cardboard to a larger piece of cardboard, and I'm going to be gluing it with some hot glue underneath like that, so that the roof now goes down to the ground. I've got some different colour chocolate wrappers, so I've got gold and red, and I've got orange and silver, and all I'm doing is cutting them into little strips like that, and then cutting small pieces off and rolling them into little balls like that, to make some of the decorations to go around the windows. To put the decorations around the windows and doors, I've got this really coarse glitter, and all I've done is I've sprinkled just a little bit around the doors. I'm going to use all the little balls that I made to go round, and I'm going to do that around all the windows as well. I'm using PVA glue, and I'm just going around each of the windows like that, and then sprinkling some of this green glitter on. I've squirted some glue out onto a plastic, and I'm taking my little balls, and I'm taking one, dipping it into the glue, and then placing it around my door. So I'm going to do that all the way around the door. I've gone all the way around the door, and now I'm going to be working on the windows. Now for the windows, I'm going to be using the kind of like an orangey yellow colour and silver. I've covered all the doors and windows with my little decorations, and now I'm just going to put that aside to dry. I'm working on the chimney now, and I'm closing the chimney off by just cutting a small piece of cardboard that I took from the roof, and I'm going to be gluing that on top, and then placing my piece around it like that. So I'll be using hot glue just to glue that all together. I've glued my chimney on, and now I'm taking the same strips that I used for the windows, and I'm just going to be gluing one around the top, and I'm using hot glue to do that as well. I'm putting some hot glue on the top so that it can fall down, so that it looks a bit like snow, and then I'll paint that all white. I'm using facing, which is the non-ironable one, and I'm going to be sticking that onto the roof. So I'm going to be going all the way to that side and then cutting the hole there, so my little Santa can go through, and then it can lie flat. And I'm gluing this all down with PVA glue. I've got it all glued on and trimmed to size, and I've put a piece of cardboard in the center there, so that when I close this, I've got something to glue on. And now I'm just going to glue that closed and put the little side pieces on like that. I'm taking a clean disposable baby's nappy or diaper, and I'm just pulling the fluffy stuff out on the inside, which I'm going to be using for the snow. And all I'm going to be doing is taking small pieces like that and soaking it in the glue, and then flipping it over so that it's all completely covered, and then just putting it onto the roof. Try not soak it for too long, otherwise it turns to quite a gel. I'm only just doing these side pieces. So there's our little house completed. With Father Christmas going up the roof. I've just placed the new decoration on top of my advent calendar dollhouse that I made. Thank you so much for watching.